You are listening to the Shopify Solutions Podcast, a podcast for Shopify store owners that brings you concrete examples on how to build and grow your e-commerce business. My name is Scott Austin, and I have an e-commerce agency named Jade Puma. In this podcast, I'll share my e-commerce insights and best practices with you. Hey, Scott Austin here. And for this week's episode, I'm going to do something a little bit different. For the first time, I'm having a guest on the podcast, and you'll be hearing from Dylan Glenn of Cattlemen's Coffee. Dylan answered my request from a couple episodes ago, get advice on their website, and have that recorded for the podcast. So in this episode, you'll hear Dylan and I just talk about his website and his efforts so far. If you like this and you want to sign up for it yourself, send me an email and let me know that you'd like to have the same sort of experience around your website. And this is the first time that I've recorded a podcast between two people across the internet, and it did not go well technically. So I apologize in advance for the poor quality of the audio. There's still a lot of good insight here, so I hope you find some value in the conversation. Here we go. Welcome, Dylan, from Cattlemen Coffee. You volunteered for a kind of live interview and review of your website. Thank you for doing that. And I'd love to start off with you telling me a little bit about Cattlemen Coffee and how you got started in this space.
That's a great question. I appreciate you having me on the podcast. I've been listening to your podcast for several months now. So Cattlemen's Coffee began from just a desire to want to sell something online. In college, I built websites, I learned websites, and built a lot of custom WordPress sites for clients, even though it's always been a side hustle. And at some point, I made the transition from working on other people's websites to wanting to build my own brand and my own website that facilitated that. So I did blogging for a while with a hobby interest blog that never really made any money. I did set up a Shopify store 3 years ago now, and it's been fairly successful, even though COVID has hit it really hard and I had to shut it down this year. I was just sitting on the couch one night, and I had a buddy text me and says, "What do you know about coffee?" And I'm like, "I've already looked into it. I know the apps, the Shopify, the integration. I just didn't have the name or the audience that compelled me to start it at the time." And he's like, "You like Western stuff? What about cowboy coffee?" And we did a little research, and then he texted me that in late July, and here we are. It took me 3 months to build the brand and get it up and running, and we've been live for about 6.5 weeks now.
So is your business partner a coffee person, or like from a business standpoint, or how did you guys end up on coffee as the place where you wanted to build your first online store?
Right, he's a coffee snob or coffee guru. I drink coffee every day, just like many people would drink coffee. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in the coffee field, but I have the website and the marketing experience from my other Shopify store and websites I've built previously. And so he's more of the coffee guru, whereas I'm more of the website marketing person.
Makes sense. So he's more of the product and you're more of the customer acquisition side of things, it sounds like.
Correct.
Now, in this space, I believe that most Shopify stores should have some sort of unique selling proposition, right? USP. Have you thought about in Cattlemen's what your USP is and how you're going to differentiate yourself from the competition?
Sure, I certainly have. My first value proposition is craft roasted coffee that's delivered fresh. So upon a customer ordering, it's then batch roasted and delivered as soon as possible to the customer. So it's always roasted fresh and delivered in its peak freshness as quickly as we can get it there. The other value proposition is just the audience that we have is marketing it to that Western rancher cowboy lifestyle or people that want to associate with that. And it's an audience that I felt was kind of missing out on some of these mainstream marketing efforts by other coffee brands.
So I'm going to just be, blunt with you about certain things here. On the universal selling proposition or the unique selling proposition of fresh roasted, that makes sense, right? Fresh roasted, that's important. Is that unique? Don't other brands also do the same thing, or is there something I don't know about this space?
No, I guess it's not unique. I mean, it's not unique to the other online brands that are operating in the same space.
Yep.
Obviously, if you go down your local grocer, then that's not going to be batch roasted fresh because there's delivery chain and
Yep.
and other marketing and wholesale clients in there. So it's not unique to just us. I guess the more uniqueness to us is the Western flavor, the Western audience.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely want to dig into that a little bit. For those of you who are listening on the audio only, not just the name Cattlemen's Coffee, but everything about this website says Old West and in Cowham. They even use verbiage. I'm going to scroll down on the homepage here, and there's just one line here. Seriously, fucking delicious. Craft roasted for cowboys, cowgirls, ranchers, and hardworking Americans. So when I first saw your website, Dylan, I was intrigued by this focus. Can you tell me how you came up with this and how you think that's going to help you? Because I love focusing on a niche. I'm wondering, what sort of data you have behind this niche. Like, what's the size of this market? And do you think this will really help you differentiate with that market?
Right. To be honest, I don't know the actual size from data points.
Yep.
I've never looked into that, I guess, or never known how. But being, my family has a ranch in Montana. I grew up on a ranch, ridden horses all my life. So that's an audience that I see and interact with a lot.
So you're part of that audience, is what I hear you saying.
Correct.
Yep.
And so I don't know. I mean, I listened to a bunch of Shopify podcasts because I already had a previous Shopify store that was a drop shipping technique or style of Shopify website where I drop shipped items. And so this, just listening to the podcast and all the experts and all the homework I've done led me to set this up the way I have. And listening to your podcast, lifestyle images, single point focus to really drive home what this brand is to that customer and try to strike a nerve with them.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And in looking at your website, I like, I totally respect the way you've carried it through everything. I'm even looking like in your little announcement thing, it talks about free shipping, and it's an emoji with a cowboy hat, which I didn't even know existed, but you've got them up there, right? So you're carrying that consistently through, which is really nicely done. Have you gotten any feedback from customers? So there's nothing wrong with not knowing the data, right? When you go out and start your business, most of us don't know all the data behind things. But what we're doing is we're validating assumptions, right? And the first assumption I see you making here is having a cowboy themed brand will help attract you to an audience and help differentiate you with an audience. And I'm wondering in the few weeks and months now that your business has been up, have you gotten any feedback or validation on that assumption yet?
Right. So I had the website ready to go late September, and we did a soft launch, but it was still password protected. And what I did is we've been churning social media since late July when we started the idea. As soon as we had the idea, we started social media channels just to gain interest. We saw some early interest. When I did a soft launch, what I did is I reached out to those interested parties. I handpicked a dozen people from the social media account and said, here's the password to the website. Here's a discount for a free product. Please go test the website, order a product, and give me feedback. And what I did is I created a Google form that I sent to them a week later to collect the feedback, and then also just all those individual conversations that I had. And everybody was extremely positive. They thought that we were already way bigger than what we currently were. So it's just the feedback has been nothing but positive from the user or customer standpoint.
Yep. And what people say and what they do can sometimes be different. And I love the fact that you're approaching it this way, right? And you're going out and you're you're giving people samples and discounts and stuff like that. Have you seen anybody who you gave a discount to order a second time? Have you had any repeat purchases yet? Because that'll be a really good validation for you.
So my top fans, which I do track, they have 4 or 5 purchases to this point, separate order instances. And if I look at my data, I'm averaging about 22% return customer rate. So it's been really positive. It's like everybody 22%, the data is there that if they make the first purchase, they come back at some point.
Yeah, that's totally awesome. That's some good validation so far. So it sounds like, you've got a product and a price point and a brand that's appealing to this early set of users who you've, found through your different marketing efforts. And that's proving out that, it's working. Now the question for you becomes, correct me if I'm wrong, but how big is that audience for you? How are you going to find them, attract them, retain them, and all that good stuff? What are you thinking about for your different customer acquisition channels moving forward and scaling up?
Right now we're doing Instagram and Facebook, but we're focused on Instagram for the majority, because that's where we're getting the most traction. I have and am running Facebook ads, even though I am not doing it to cold traffic. That proved to not be successful early.
Yep.
So I killed that, and I'm only doing it as a retarget measure right now, because I understand customers need to see a brand or a product 3 to 7 times before they're going to make a purchase. And so advertising to cold traffic wasn't beneficial, but advertising to warm traffic has been beneficial.
Absolutely makes sense.
We plan to, we're looking at Pinterest, we're looking at YouTube, and some other channels in the future once we master and kind of figure out what we're doing now.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And the fact that you're retargeting, right? That's the first advertising anybody should be doing. And you quickly learned that lesson because, as we all know, once you go on a website, it kind of chases you around the internet and it works, right? It's effective. You keep yourself top of mind with someone who is already interested in you. So that retargeting is doing that for you. And it sounds like it's doing it pretty well.
Right. My other Shopify site operated solely off Facebook ads to cold traffic and saw a decent return to cold traffic, but it was a cheaper product and it didn't have a brand. So it was just a product. There was no really brand or lifestyle that was connected to that. But for what I was selling at the price point, people they would impulse buy. But this being a brand and being a lifestyle that people connected with, it was a total different approach in my marketing efforts.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the beautiful thing for you here is, your price points, started at like about $15, and it's really hard at that price point if you're just selling one product to one customer, customer lifetime value of one order to profitably, acquire traffic. You can't acquire Facebook traffic profitably at that price point. But you have a subscription offering and repeat purchases. So your customer acquisition gets amortized over multiple purchases instead of just a single purchase because it's a product that doesn't need refilling. So the fact that your coffee and any sort of consumable lends you to that subscription, which allows you to invest a little more in that customer acquisition side of things because you get to amortize it over a longer order life cycle.
Right, and I've certainly taken that into effect too, especially with the subscription plan and some of the discounts I'm doing. I'm like, it's the bait or it's the nibble, it's the appetizer to get them in the door to make that first purchase. And then after that, we own the journey, with using Klaviyo and all the touch points through email marketing and social media marketing connected to our social media accounts. We're hitting that customer, touching base with that customer on multiple levels moving forward.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I absolutely love Klaviyo as a CRM tool. It's definitely my favorite and especially important because you've got to get people to subscribe. Even if they try your product once, it's up to you now. Now that you've got that email address of theirs in your order history, you get to go back with your direct campaigns instead of advertising, trying to find them through social. You get to do the emails, and it'd be interesting to see. I would love to see what your flows look like how many emails do you actually send out to a first-time orderer to try to get them up to the subscription level?
Well, I'd certainly love to talk more about Klaviyo. It's new to me. I hadn't ever used it before this experience. I was looking at a couple different ones, and between your podcast recommending it and the tighter integration with Shopify, that's what I picked. I was also considering OmniSend, but I chose Klaviyo, and the learning curve was steep. But once I kind of dove in and spent some time under the hood, it makes sense. So out of my flows, that was the first thing I did. I've only recently sent campaigns, but flows I had set up on the website from day one because I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And my welcome series is by far my most profitable. It sees the most traction, and I think I have 3 emails, 4 if they don't use the coupon right off the bat. So
Yep.
I offer a 15% coupon right off the bat. So if you subscribe and do the double opt-in, you automatically get the 15% discount if you're a first-time customer. If you're not a first-time customer, so you've purchased but you didn't sign up or go through the welcome series, and then you end up going through the welcome series flow after your first purchase, you don't get the discount. So it's only on first-time purchasing. And then the second email is basically an about us. Good, strong, honest. What are our 3 pillars of value? And then if you hadn't used the discount, I send you a reminder that says, hey, your discount's still valid. You have 48 hours left to use it. And that's where I'm picking up a lot of customers, is in that second email reminding them limited time offer.
Yeah. Now, you called that your welcome series, and I usually break up welcome series into 2 separate buckets, right? The first welcome series is a welcome to a subscriber, and that's someone who either through a form on your website or a pop-up adds their name to your email list but doesn't make a purchase. And those are the people I can see, you've got your save 15% and that kind of stuff, discount codes. So they get one welcome series, and I usually set up another welcome series, and that's for a customer, right? So on the welcome in Klaviyo, you can trigger flows based on how they signed up, right? So you can have different, flows based on which form they used. So I always set up the welcome subscriber one based on, usually I have 2 forms, one that's embedded in the homepage and one that's a pop-up. I just trigger it based on those 2. And then I trigger the other one for the customers based on submitting an order. And then I've had one customer we just set up recently. She has 6 different if-thens in that customer one. And basically, if they've ordered once, ordered twice, ordered 3 times, ordered 4, ordered 5, and she has a different message for each one of those based on how many times they've ordered. So it sounds like you right now have a welcome flow based on a subscriber. And the first question I have is that based on subscriber, based on a form, or is that just anybody that gets added to your Klaviyo master list? I usually call it newsletter. How are you triggering that flow?
It's based on subscribers, so they have to subscribe through either the pop-up form or the main form on the homepage.
Okay.
Now, if they place an order and just, check for accepts marketing, they get added to the newsletter, but it doesn't trigger the welcome series flow.
So
I guess your advice would be to have a second flow that would trigger like a different series without the discount. That would just be more about us and warm them up to the brand more.
Absolutely. And you'll actually find in building a brand, that second welcome series based on purchase is your most valuable brand tool in all of your arsenal, right? Because now you've got someone who's likes you enough to give you money, and now you get to build a relationship with them. And that flow should go along the lines of something like, hey, here's the 2 founders, Dylan and I we haven't talked about your founder's name yet, but your co-founder's name. I would actually talk about the 2 of you guys, right? You definitely, and I don't mean this in any offensive way at all, you sound like a cowpoke to me, right? And that gives you authenticity. Like I would be showing this. I'd show your family ranch in Montana and you with a horse or whatever kind of thing. And the same thing with your business partner. That's your first email. Your second one would be about the coffee they're about to receive, right? Or have received right about now. And you talk about where it gets sourced from, if it's ethically sourced and the fresh roasting process and how you come up with your blends and all that kind of stuff. And then your third email, you got to figure, gotten your coffee by now, might be how to use it, some recipes, or, if they've got whole beans, how you recommend they grind it and stuff like that. And then your fourth one might be, hey, do you want to do a second order? And that might be 30 days down the road from wherever they made the purchase, whatever the average consumption time is for your product. And then if they still haven't, bought it the second one, and you can have it in your flow based on that, another 15 days out. Are you sure you don't want to order a second one? All right, and that's for your first time purchase. Your second time purchase, and after that, I wouldn't end with the, hey, do you want to make another purchase? I would end with the, hey, do you want to subscribe now? Here's the benefits of our subscription program.
No, that makes total sense. And I mean, this is my first time using Klaviyo and doing this amount or this scale of email marketing. So for the first time, everything, I picked up this template off another podcast I listened to and just said, that sounds great. I'm sure it'll work for me. And so I just followed that template or the advice that they gave to implement this.
Yep.
And I had always planned in the back of my head to expand on this or to add additional flows to do exactly what you said in the future. Right now, I'm just waiting on more traffic and more data to fill this in, so I kind of know what pieces are working, what pieces aren't.
Yeah, it makes sense. And if you look at a Klaviyo installation on somebody who's been using it for years on a big scale business, you would be amazed at how complex these flows become, because you're going to learn over time certain things. For example, I have one client and they sell high-end silk sheets here in the United States, but they also ship to Europe. And when they ship to Europe, they actually charge, there's import taxes, and it's a heavy shipping cost, and it's really expensive. So they get a huge abandoned cart on their international orders, and we ended up creating flows that if they abandon cart in the U.S., we do one thing. If they abandon cart and they're in United Kingdom or the rest of EU, we do another thing and explain, hey, these are the taxes, this isn't us, this is your government, and here's the shipping cost. And by the way, when you combine all this, we're still better quality for a better price than the European competition is, and that kind of stuff. But we learned that by, looking at the business, seeing, what types of people were abandoning carts, making some assumptions about that and testing those assumptions out and coming up with a much more intricate flow, but really optimized for this exact business situation that they had.
Yeah, and that makes total sense.
So let's take a look at your store, because one of the comments you made that your customer said they thought you were bigger than you actually are. I get what they mean by that, right? Your store, for a brand new store, and there's not a lot of products here. You got, I don't know, your total catalog of 12 or so coffees. You've done a really good job in bringing everything together. It looks like someone spent time and cared, right? And that's the way I explain it to people. Like, just the fact someone sets up, you have a staged photo right now on your homepage for the holiday time frame where there's a few bags of your coffee with some Christmas decorations and some reindeer, right? And just the fact that you set that up and took that photo, I don't know how long it took you, right? But just the fact you did that, customers noticed that. Maybe not consciously, but I fully believe that subconsciously, there's a lot of things that people can tell. They put effort towards that, they being the store. And that just means that you're more serious, right? In today's world where it's so easy to create a Shopify store or to, load products into Amazon, there's a lot of fly-by-night. There's a lot of people who are, disreputable, or a lot of concerns that customers have. Like, if I actually submit my credit card to these people and put it in order, is there somebody, a breathing body on the other end, who's actually going to fulfill it or not, right?
I completely understand what you're saying, and from all my experience developing websites and working on websites and my previous experience with another Shopify store, this was all homegrown. I mean, we've bootstrapped everything. All the work you've seen is our own. We do have a couple stock images in there, but the labels we did ourselves. This photo was taken by my business partner. Everything's been us, and it's been a lot of time and a lot of effort, but we are proud of it.
Yeah, and your stock photos are completely on brand, right? I'm scrolling down your homepage, and I assume you mean the Cattlemen's Club, which is a cowboy silhouette one and a good, strong, honest.
Correct, those are stock, yeah.
Yep. But they fit right in, right? And they don't look as stock. as some of them do. Like for some reason, there's a lot of, you can tell when your stock photo was shot like in Eastern Europe or in some parts of Asia. Um,
Sure.
and these are obviously a little more culturally relevant kind of thing. Like I was literally before this call getting on and changing one of my client's stock photos where he has off-road parts, and I was putting an Arizona license plate over the EU license plate to make it a little more geographically relevant for them, because we don't have a good Arizona off-road Jeep photo that we could find on the internet. So our stuff from we had to change the license plate out. So those little details make a difference here. And like you've got this color scheme, which is obviously coffee brown kind of thing going on. Now I'm going to go to your about page, because what you're trying to do is differentiate yourself with a brand, right? And what I always tell my clients is, and I'm not saying that this is what you're doing here, but a lot of my clients try to seem bigger than they are. And by bigger, I mean they try to seem like a big corporation. And I love the fact you're not doing that here, right? Here you have Dylan and Taylor signing off on the about page, which is great. My advice to you here, though, is this page here is where you get to build a personal relationship with customers. And you see this in a lot of user flows. Nobody comes to the about page the second they come to a website, right? They browse around for a bit and they shop, and then they're like, hey, I like what I see here. I'm about to make a purchase. Who am I buying this from? Right?
Right.
And they'll be in the cart or something, go to the about page, they'll like what they see, and then they'll go check out, kind of thing. So think about this page as your opportunity to build a personal relationship with someone who's about to purchase from you. And you've already said that your brand is really important, right? It's one of your differentiators. Here's where I would show that picture of you on the ranch with the family in Montana, or something of that effect. I would show photos of both you and Taylor, right? You're brave enough to sign your names there, which is awesome. Put some faces behind that.
One of the next things we're going to do once we can get together and do that, that's one of the upgrades we have.
Yep, and tell the story. And what I tell people when they do that kind of thing, what I mean by tell the story is, like, literally find a third person. There's you and Taylor. Find a third person that is a potential customer of yours, and pick up your phone and hit record, and record yourself talking to them about your store. And now my phone converts that straight to text immediately. It's an app built into my phone. If your phone doesn't do that, there's software that you can convert that spoken word into text, and then take that text as the starting point of the copy for your about page. Don't start writing into a keyboard, because we get too formal when we do that, right? If I was, to talk to, give you advice non-verbally through text, it would sound very different than what I'm saying right now. So I would encourage you, just walk up to somebody and start telling them about your brand. Tell them the story about you and Taylor, how you got started, your passion around coffee, what you're here for, all that good stuff. And it'll actually sound pretty good, right? And that'll be a good starting point for your about page, instead of trying to, pound the keyboard and write something out. It's way harder for me and many people to write into a keyboard, where it's a lot easier to tell the story verbally and then use that as text.
No, that's a great tip.
And then, when I look at your contact page, one of the things that's great here is you're showing people that you're willing to listen to them by, putting your email address up there and your phone number. If you're willing to accept phone calls, you've already got it on the homepage. It's in the footer. That's really nice. That's a great trust indicator, that the fact you're putting up a phone number, even if you don't answer it, right? Even if it goes to voicemail kind of thing, you pick it up later. Putting a phone number up and publishing that, is one of those indicators that, hey, we're serious and we're legit and we care about you. People resonate with that. There's so many websites that will not publish a phone number or an email address. It's only the contact form.
Something, I guess that's a question I have for you, is how much, because I see a lot of, fly-by-night Shopify stores that have all these trust badges and authorized by, and I know it's fake. I can spot it. I
Totally.
Enough
Totally.
of these websites. But it's like, how do I build trust? How do I show trust authentically without being really spammy or over the top with it? And so I tried that through here. You see the little Pony Express graphic and some stuff. And I thought about adding, a value trust badge in there. a satisfaction guarantee statement in there as well. And so that's something maybe you could expand on.
Oh, totally. So I'm a huge fan. I call them product seals or product icons. I don't like the word trust badge because that's so overused, right? If you do an internet search for trust badge right now, you'll see all these images that'll show up, and all people are doing is throwing up an icon for SSL or credit cards and all that kind of stuff. And it does look spammy because each one of them is their own size and their own weight and that good stuff, so they don't look consistent, right? They don't look uniform at all. So what I do is, and they're also very generic. Like every website is SSL today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now there is some best practices that say having the little lock icon on the add to cart or the checkout page in the cart is a good thing to do and those kind of things. But I think people are way too spammy and way too inconsistent by just throwing up logos from somebody, right? From wherever they could. What I try to do with a store is come up with, what are the objections people are going to have to buying your product, right? So, one objection, you're not clothing, but a big one for clothing is how easy are returns. So for a clothing store, we'll put up an easy returns product seal right, and I usually put a set of them underneath the add to cart button, right where you've got your Pony Express horse right now.
Right.
And
I've thought about adding a satisfaction guarantee.
Absolutely.
Obviously keeping it on a brand, but adding it right below that one to where it's seen when they do that.
Yep.
You mentioned that lock icon. I don't have it on the add to cart, but I do have it on the checkout when you on the cart page. I added that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I would leave it. I wouldn't put one here. I did say it here originally, but I like it better in the cart page, not on the add to cart button. Because here, when on the add to cart button, my mind says, oh, they're locking that from me. It's not clickable, but it actually is. So it's a little bit weird there. But on the product seals, some other things that I do, right? So you could have a satisfaction guaranteed logo, and then you could have a tooltip effect on hover that people could, read more information about it, or can click to your warranty kind of thing. But like common product seals that I put up for people are things like made in the USA, free shipping, whatever like certifications you have, like organic or ethically sourced. And then what I do is I take all those different icons and logos and I make them all look exactly the same or it's consistent, right? So I'm actually working on one for a chocolate store right now out of Maine, and we've actually come up with a very similar color scheme where it's the darker brown and the lighter brown together, and all of her product seals that I've made for her are all round with text in the same place and uses three colors, the dark brown, the light brown, and white.
The consistent branding.
Yep. And I've even gotten some, like, she gets her coffee beans from somewhere tropical, and there's, this tropical organization about ethically sourced and that kind of thing, and their logo's green. I changed it to brown. I use their same thing, but I changed the colors to map really well. So there's that consistency behind them. And that's one of those, things we talked about earlier where customers can tell you went through some effort to do that, right? I can tell you went through a lot of effort already on your store where, you have the icons for the medium roast and they look consistent with the other icons that show up. Because I know on other products you have other icons and they look like they're a set. And you spent time doing that. Same thing with your product seals. Product seals are a really good way to tell a customer who's about to click add to cart why they should not resist adding it to the cart, right? And like I said, every business is different. But for you, that satisfaction guaranteed is a really important one, right? And I don't know if that's a money back thing or whatever, but explain that to people. If whatever your free shipping policy is, or if your coffee is actually made in the United States or roasted in the United States. I'm a big fan of letting American audiences know what products they're buying or what services they're buying are American, right? Just the fact you're American owned is a differentiator compared to some of the others out there kind of thing. So whatever all those product seals are, and then I usually do that with, in liquid code, I usually do some if-then statements, right? For you, with all your coffee being a little bit different, you probably got tags that say this one's organic and this one's that and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the roast bean up top where it says medium roast, I'm pulling that based on tag.
Yep.
You actually help me with the code on that.
Yep.
And some coffees will have 3, some will have 2, depending on whether they're organic They all have a roast, but some are single origin, so I have an icon there. And the organic has a different icon.
Yep. Yeah. And I like the medium roast and those kind of things up there because those are telling me the differences between the products, right?
Right.
The flavor, that kind of thing. And then the product seals would tell, busting the objections to purchase kind of thing. We're going to,
Right. I put this stuff up there because that's inherent to the product. What's the quick information about this product that would be important to the customer?
Yep.
And then anything that's, trustworthy, any of that I put down below the button, the add to cart.
Yeah, I totally agree with that logic. That makes a lot of sense to me. So let's take a step back as we jump to the product page. What I want to do is I want to go to your coffee page, which is your collection page. Your whole shopping experience and any store shopping experience, the way I explain it is the shopping experience is a decision-making process, right? A lot of stores, all they do is display their products. They just show a list of products and they don't help customers make decisions. And one of the best examples of this is the largest e-commerce store in the world, Amazon. They do an absolute horrible job of helping a customer make a decision. They leave that up to the product themselves to, the product has to really scream at you, I'm great and here's why, because Amazon's throwing 17 other promotions on that page for competitors to that product. And that's the nature of Amazon having every product in the world for sale in one store, right? They couldn't have a good guided shopping experience. But you, as a small store with a small product catalog, are the exact opposite. And you can have a really good guided shopping experience. So the way I think about that is, you want to walk customers through step by step, making a decision at a time, right? And here's a great example with your main navigation. Do you want coffee or apparel? I'm making a decision. Those are easy to make. I'm here for coffee. I click on coffee. Now on this page here, what I would recommend for you is to think about is how can you have the differences between the products explained on this page? Because this is a decision-making page. You've got a list of your coffees, and it looks like there's 10 of them here, right? And I've got some filters so I can see which ones are dark, light, medium, organic, and single origin. How can the product description explain the differences? And by product description, I mean this image and text here, not the actual product description on the product page. How can that explain the differences between these products?
I've thought a lot about that, and at one point I had implemented a solution, but that solution was kind of half-baked, and so I'd be interested in your ideas on how to implement that with either icons, additional text, or how can I portray, what sizes are available, what types or style, whole bean ground. How can I display that or show that here without it being cluttered?
Yep. And really nice job in making your background photos match your colored background of your website and not being the Amazon white standard. That kind of detail is really sweet. These images pop really well because you've matched the background of the photo to the background of the website. And I kind of derailed there. The reality of how I would do that if I was you, I would somehow think about how to factor these icons into this product image.
Okay, and that's been an idea I've had.
Yep.
I just redid these images, and I appreciate your compliment on those. And that's an idea I've had. I just know it's going to be a lot of work.
Well,
which I'm not shy to, but I just got to, what's the best route to go?
Well, doing that as an image is a lot easier than doing it in code, right? That's
Sure.
why I'm saying an image, right? On your collection page, if your image embeds a whole bunch of information and through icons, that means you don't have to do it in code. It's just easier to do. It is work, but I think it's easier for most people than it is to do it at the code level. And then also it's really contained, right? So you know exactly what it's going to look like, as opposed to worrying about the responsiveness if you've got text or icons elsewhere on the page, and how does it work on mobile. It's a really predictable experience. I don't recommend embedding things in photos too often, but in this case, that's something I would try because your products are very portrait in a square photo, which is the way you should, have all square photos. That gives you a lot of white space on each side, or tan space in your case. You can move the product over a little bit, throw in a couple icons, and I think that'll drive it home really well.
Right. My plan was to have all the lifestyle photos here that you see embedded in the product images, but until I reshoot and make every single one specific and identical, because they are set, specific to the product because they have the product in them, but the background is similar on a few. And so when I put all the lifestyle photos in the collection, it didn't really have that much differentiation between the different products. So that's why I went with that cleaner, just the coffee bag on the collection page. And with that, you're right, I could add icons in there to show some of the sub information.
Yeah, and I always recommend that on the collection page, you have what I call, this here is the Amazon product photo, right? Where it's just the product. I would not recommend putting lifestyle shots on a collection page because this is a decision page, right? And what you're trying to show here is the differences between your products. And if you clutter it with, a backdrop of a lifestyle image, that's too confusing. It needs to be, brain dead simple, the differences between your products here, and let people make decisions, right? Because they've already engaged with you to say, I want coffee. That's how they got here. Now we're trying to help them with that decision. Right? So your collection page, we talked about how that's part of your decision-making process. And then I like how on your product page, you're having them choose between, whole bean and ground, size. Now, some of your products I notice come in multiple sizes. Others don't. They just come in one size. I usually don't do a product choice of one. So here it says size 12 ounces and that's it, right?
Right. So I'm gonna add it to all the main ones.
Yep.
Which is why I set it up that way in the beginning. I've just recently started adding it to the three flavors or roast that I have with the alternate size.
Yep. And then they have the option to subscribe, and you can change the delivery frequency and all that good stuff. That's nice. You might want to just kill a couple of these options here, right? Nobody's going to do every 9 weeks, I assume. You probably want to do 1 to 4 weeks and months, so they can, that kind of thing. Just to limit choices is all. That's a really small nit. And then you're using, looks like Judge Me for reviews, which I absolutely love. You're already getting reviews, which is totally awesome. One of the nice things when you're looking at reviews is how frequent they are or how recent they are. So it's going to be important for you over time to make sure you keep getting recent reviews in. On this page here, the most recent one is less than a month ago, but it'd be even more valuable if that was 3 days ago, because it just shows to customers that, hey, people are purchasing this even today, kind of thing.
Right. Do you know, I haven't looked, do you know if that date is when they purchased or when the review?
No, that's when they put in the review. And you don't have a all reviews link in the footer, which with Judge Me is an easy thing to set up. They build you a template for it. I would make an all reviews thing, and that's a good Google best practice. Google likes to see a page with all your reviews on it, especially if you're advertising with them, which you're not doing now, but it's just good stuff for down the road. And then if I add to your cart, I'm going to go one-time purchase. I like the promo here. Is this the one that I talked about in one of my podcast episodes, or did you do this yourself?
Yeah, we actually exchanged quite a few emails on this. So I'm using both your cart promos, the shipping threshold, which isn't shown right now because my holiday promotion is free shipping, so I just turned that off. In the meantime, normally that would be shown with the math that says you need X amount of dollars to get free shipping. And then this is the cart upsell, cross-sell module that you have the code base for from your podcast. And then I tweaked it
to show the variance.
I added the price. I added the variant options there.
No, that's really nice. I like that a lot. And how many products you have queued up in that? 2 of them?
3. I have the same 3 default that you have set up.
Yep.
I've thought about adding more, but I haven't seen the need to.
Yeah. Well, and something to think about, right, is throw a hat in there or throw some of your apparel in there. They're already buying coffee.
Right.
Maybe your first product or your second product or something like that is one of your branded items, just to see if, you're already buying coffee. Hey, do you want one of the, and some of your t-shirts are kind of funny, right? Definitely a part of your brand. Maybe you throw in one of them and see if that helps also. Because
Right. I did have one last week as the third option,
yep,
but because my holiday sale, my holiday coffee, I made it all. I guess a good saying or that I learned a while back is like keep your main thing your main thing. And I know coffee is my main thing, but you're right, and I have done that. Put a shirt in there for branded.
yep. Well, and I totally agree. The main thing is the main thing, except that's one of the reasons I made that element for that cart is you can let people know about stuff that they could possibly get that they weren't thinking about because you are a coffee store.
Sure.
But this is a way to build a little bit of awareness without getting in their face and slowing things down.
Right, and I've seen like collection or like related products on the cart page is pretty common.
Yep.
And I preferred your solution to a single product versus that was above the checkout button versus a product collection below the checkout button.
Yep. And then I'm looking at your checkout. It's nicely branded, little image at the top. That's nice. Right, you're carrying that coloring all the way through. You might want to just make this background the same tan the rest of your site is.
I tried that and it washes it out.
Oh,
Really
okay.
bad.
Yep. You're thinking all the right stuff. And then tell me about the Cattlemen's Club.
So that's the subscription service.
Okay.
And I'm using Bold V1, which doesn't have the API. So if I look at the API version and every competitor that uses it, they have this really nice branded page that walks you through why would you do the subscription, here's the features, here's the benefits, and then it shows you the schedule of what you can pick on. This is my attempt to kind of meet halfway. So I can still use that V1 subscription service, but still have a custom branded page that speaks to why you should sign up for this and the benefits and to make you feel part of the club for doing so. So this is a custom page that I created a custom template for.
Yep.
To have all of these variables in here. And then I just create a collection and I load that collection here that syncs with my subscription products.
Yep. And the header right now, right? I love the fact in your header it's just shopping links. Cattlemen's Club, coffee, apparel. That's it. And no about us, no, any of those fluffy things, our mission, all that garbage, right? It's just shopping. I love that. However, you have Cattlemen's Club first. And Cattlemen's Club is really just a subscription, right? It's because it sounds like when you say Cattlemen's Club, like I'm paying to be part of this organization or something. Like it seems like a bigger obstacle by calling it Cattlemen's Club than just saying it's a subscription. And you're putting that front and center. It's the first thing people see, right? So I totally agree you should have subscription. And my recommendation would be promoting that to your customers, but not so predominantly on your website, right? You want to promote Cattlemen's Club or subscription offering, subscribe and save, right? To your people that already have bought your coffee. If I haven't bought your coffee yet, what you want me to do is to buy your coffee. And once I buy your coffee, then the next goal is to buy a second order or a third. And then somewhere in there, right, between 1 and 5, there's a number people are going to hit that it's, a no-brainer they should be subscribing now. So a lot of people, a lot of stores, I think, are too aggressive on their website with their customer loyalty or customer retention programs, where they can be less aggressive on the website and way more aggressive through email. Or if you want to be aggressive on the website, do it in the right places. Do it on the order thank you page. Do it on the customer account page and those kind of things, as opposed to front and center in the main nav as the first item.
So you would not have that custom page at all and just link it, try to catch them after the fact, or have a note about that on the product page?
Well, no, I would have the custom page, right, where you talk about Cattlemen's Club. Just thinking off the top of my head, I might throw Cattlemen's Club into the footer, right?
Okay.
And then what I would do is in all my emails, I would have a little promo that, like in the footer or something, Cattlemen's Club, subscribe and save, and then link to that page that you built. That's that destination, right? That's the landing page you want them to go to,
Right.
but you want to
Yeah.
drive the right person at the right time to that destination. And you could even have, a homepage promotion about it. I just wouldn't make it the first item in your nav is my big point. And
Okay.
anybody who's in the coffee, well, on any one of those pages, they can subscribe if they want to, right? There's not this bifurcated experience.
Right. I mean, even if you go to the collection on the club page, it's just all the same products.
Yep.
You just
Yep.
have to, I just use some of the similar language so they understand. So that's why I have that collection titled "Subscribe and Save," and then I use that same verbiage in the features "Subscribe and Save." So I'm kind of warming the customer up to that's what you need to do, and that's the verbiage you're going to see when you look at the product.
Yep. Yeah. And the uber point I'm making there is think about your homepage and your top nav especially, because your top nav, everybody who comes to your website sees your top nav. Only people that search for your company name will go to your homepage. Most other people are going to go to a landing page of some sort, whether it's a collection page or a landing page you design for ads, right? So don't promote so heavily customer retention things in that space. This is customer acquisition right now. Once you acquire the customer, use your other tools, and that's what Klaviyo is so beautiful for promoting your customer retention programs.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and like I used to work at Microsoft in the past, and I was in MSN for a while, and we were trying to come up with a subscription, right? And what we realized over time, and I remember this guy came out to this all hands meeting we had one day and said, we've got this huge subscription wall, and what we need to build is a ladder that slowly walks them up to the wall and over it. And you've already got that, right? They can do a single purchase, right? You don't have to promote the big scary subscription front and center first day. You can say, hey, buy some fabulous coffee. And then once they buy some fabulous coffee, then you get to pound them left, right, and center with Klaviyo to get them to buy again, buy again, buy again, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe.
Right, and the data would actually support that too. So I run Hotjar, and knowing all my hits and links on that, it would actually support removing that from the main nav. I'm glad that you like the idea of keeping my custom page as a landing page to send people from directly to here.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
that's what it was designed for, was the landing page for the club and the subscription service.
Yeah, one of the things I always tell my clients is you should never, ever, ever send your customers to the homepage. You should always send them to a deeper destination inside of your site because you know something about them. And you should take what you know about them and apply that in that landing page. So, for example, if you were to do an ad campaign right now to men in Montana, right? I would send that to a landing page of some sort, which looks Montana-ish. If you were to, do an ad campaign to women in Florida, you would have a different page, right? It might be the exact same products, but maybe just the banner's different. And maybe on one of them you say, hey, cowboys, and on the other one you say, hey, cow ladies, right? That kind of thing.
So technical question there.
Yep.
That completely makes sense from a marketing side. Technically, how would I achieve that? Would I just create a custom page template, or is there a faster way of doing that? Because creating the custom page template is time consuming.
What theme are you using here?
This is the free theme called Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, okay. Yeah, it's one of the common ones. I always use now I always use the Flex theme. I used to use Turbo all the time, and Flex is basically Turbo 2.0.
They have that details page.
Exactly. Now you have to make a new product.details template every single page. So for some stores, I'll make 30 of those templates, but I'm just copy and pasting the template, and it's super easy to do. The short answer to your question is, yeah, you have to make a template for it, right? And that's why people who are using themes like Brooklyn, they bring in, the page builder apps and that kind of stuff. I'm not a fan of those at all. I'm a big believer in, getting the biggest, baddest theme you can because it gives you tools like the .details template, which are absolutely incredible. But for you,
Sure.
you've already got a custom template made today. You can just copy and paste that, right? And change out, some verbiage around it kind of thing fairly easily, right? You basically have this one template format that you can use, 3 or 4 different times for 3 or 4 different messages.
Yeah, but okay. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And as you know, it's probably not that simple technically because I have to recreate each one of these sections specifically for that page.
Oh, you got multiple sections in one page template.
Yes.
They're not blocks within one section. I see. Yep. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so this isn't a full custom. What I'm doing is I'm loading custom sections.
Yep.
That way I can change this stuff out, or my
Yep.
business partner can change this stuff out, which doesn't know code. He can just go in and select the options and change it out. That's why I did the sections. And I guess, I don't know, if you want to talk about themes, we can. I mean, I built this theme myself from the free theme Brooklyn. I looked and considered some premium themes, but it just seemed that I'm not. It offered so many more features than what I was ready for, and I just didn't go that route. I did look at Out the Sandbox, Turbo, and Flex, and I know you support those, but I also know Shopify is coming out with sections anywhere at some point in the future. And so I guess that's one of my questions is at what point does it make sense for me to jump to a new theme? Obviously, I have custom elements built into this one. I assume I'm going to have custom elements built into the next one.
Well, so my Uber advice for you is your website is too good. And I don't mean you need to make it less good. My point being is your problem for your business right now is not your website. And that's true for most stores.
I agree. It's
right?
not the low-hanging fruit.
Your biggest problem today is customer acquisition. So if I was you, I would not be thinking at all about what to improve in my website, what new features to add, what new content to put up. I would be focusing more on how am I going to acquire customers and convert them through this funnel, because this funnel seems like it's already working, right? You've gotten people to subscribe, you got people to purchase in. I see reviews showing up, so it's working. Do you know what your store's conversion rate is right now?
If I take out the bad data,
Yep.
It's like 3.8%.
That's a really good conversion. Really good, right? I always tell my clients, 2 is good, 3 is great. I have some clients who get as high as, 7 and that kind of stuff, but that's abnormalities. 3.8 is really good. That's a sign that everything you're doing in your store is right. It's not perfect. It's never going to be done. There are loads of little things you're tweaking, but it's totally good enough. It's even better than good enough.
First, I appreciate that sentiment. Second, I'm completely focused on customer acquisition at this time.
Yep.
But the website coding nerd in the back of my mind says, when is the right time? I know it's going to be at some point in the future. As I've discussed with my business partner, I don't ever want to feel like we're comfortable. Like the business is running, everything's great. I always want to be looking for that next step. What's that next marketing tool? What's that next marketing strategy that we can bring in more customers?
Yeah, so I always tell people that once you pick a theme, plan to stay with it for years, right? Because changing themes is hard. And I also don't believe in upgrading themes because of all the customizations you do. The upgrade processes usually do not work. So you pick a theme and you stay with it for a while, and then you change it when it becomes a pain. And I do store redesigns all the time, right? And usually it's because, like, a common example today is, JSON is the common way that Google wants to scrape the data off your website. And if you've got a theme that is not, doing JSON, using microdata or something, that's a good business reason to upgrade. Or, if you've hit some limits inside of your theme, it doesn't have a good filter tool, and, you've got a product catalog of 1,000 items you need filtering, then you might want to upgrade to a theme with better search and filtering built in kind of thing. So I always recommend don't do theme upgrades just because. Only do them when your business is hurting. And then
Sure.
and then you'll know it's time because it's hurting so bad kind of thing. And it should be one of those things when you upgrade it, you should breathe this sigh of relief because now you've eliminated a pain point.
Sounds good.
So I've been talking we're going on for quite a bit here. I want to give you some time to ask any questions if you have any, and then we can start wrapping it up.
What are the next growth steps or marketing steps should I be looking at? I mean, I understand that's all going to be focused on customer acquisition and getting them through my funnel. But what would your advice be on that?
Well, you got like 4 big buckets, and I'm probably going to go up with a 5th as I start listing them off, of customer acquisition, right? So to your website, the first one is going to be Google organic. The second is going to be paid advertising. The third is going to be social. And the fourth is going to be whatever other efforts you're doing, whether that's PR and that kind of stuff, or if you do like affiliates and have people link to you that way. a lot of people are thinking about, well, I'm going to be an SEO champion or I'm going to be an organic social champion. And the reality is those are really, really hard things to do. And my clients who are fabulous, and drive a ton of traffic through SEO that converts and pays and that kind of stuff, they've been doing it for 5, some of them 15 years.
Right.
Literally had a website
I
for 15 years.
understand SEO is going to take time.
Yep. Well, the point being is, where do you get customers from today? It's going to be paid, right? So, you should be thinking about, you're already doing some of the paid advertising, but you should be trying out, all the different platforms for advertising, like advertising on Pinterest or advertising on Instagram or advertising on YouTube or advertising in Google search and that kind of stuff. But I would recommend picking one and having a good, starting assumption why you're picking that one, and then get good at it and get great at it. And then once you, perfect, and it's never finished. Once you get good at it, then you move on to the next one and do them one at a time, right? And people are always asking, like, how many platforms or how many channels should I have? And you should have as many as you can that are profitable, right? You might find out that, and it sounds like you already did some of this on Facebook. It's just not profitable, and maybe you can never get it there. But try 3 other different ad platforms and see which ones you can get to that profitable point.
Right, and exactly. I mean, my other Shopify store relied solely on cold traffic ads on Facebook, and it worked. It was profitable.
Yep.
It made It made a lot of great side hustle cash for me. However, I ran it on this store early on just to get the name out there, just to see what would happen. It was a $100 test well spent, and I got a lot of traffic. A lot of people came to the website, looked at it, but no, I didn't get any ROI. It was 0 purchases. All purchases I've had have been organic, social media, and my business partner, to his credit, every single new follow we had on Instagram, we private messaged a discount code for. So every single one that followed us, up to the first 500 people, we private messaged with the discount code and engaged with them on a personal level.
And you're not the only one. That's a common theme for people who are successful with Instagram organic, is a lot of private message and a lot of manual freaking work, right? So, there's many store owners who tell you, yeah, I spent 3 hours every night watching TV and on my phone Instagramming my customers back and forth, kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
And that works, and it's manual. A lot of things, like we were talking before about, having all those landing pages, and there's a lot of manual work in that. And a lot of building a business in a Shopify store is those manual things. And they do pay off, right? And the key for you is to figure out which ones pay off and keep investing in them. And then you'll get to a point where there's enough momentum and that kind of stuff where, you can automate more things and it starts building on itself. But in the beginning, being scrappy and reaching out directly like you're doing is a fabulous way to do things.
That's what we've done, and that's what has worked. I mean, at the point it is now, it gets, if we have a day where we get 100 followers in one day, we can't message them all. It's just nearly impossible.
Yep.
So we've kind of moved on, but now the snowball is building and starting to kind of roll itself and pick up speed. My last question for you is, what Shopify or Google Analytics data should I be looking at to judge sales performance? I have followed both your guides on my Google Analytics to set that up. So I have all the views and scorecard and everything.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of using Google Analytics just because you have more control over the data than you do in Shopify, right? And like in Google Analytics, I think I've done a podcast on this one. You can extract the information into a Google Sheet and see these long-term views, and they're totally awesome. But it's a bunch of work to set it up also, right? So, I do it for my clients because it's easy for me to do it because I've created it once and I can copy and paste it and that kind of thing.
Right. So you did the scorecard, and you put out the cheat sheets on the podcast, and I've actually followed those. So I have it all set up just like you would per your recommendations. And it has been helpful. One unique thing is Google Analytics shows me which variants I sell more of.
Yep.
Where Shopify Analytics only shows me the main product. So it's interesting to know that I know which coffee sells best, but now I also know that people buy more ground coffee than they do whole bean.
Yep.
So I've considered making the ground variant
The first one?
default.
Yep.
The first one.
Yep.
Because of that.
It makes total sense. Yeah, I love that kind of looking at what customers do and adjusting based on that. So that scorecard, that Shopify scorecard that I like so much in Google Analytics, do you get that emailed to you every Monday morning?
I haven't set it up to email to me, but I'm pretty religious about looking at the data and trying to study it.
Yeah, because what I tell people is, email that scorecard to yourself every Monday morning, which is easy to do inside of Google Analytics. And the most important number is your conversion rate. So you look at your total number of sales, and in brackets next to it, it'll tell you what percentage of your total website that is. So that's where your 3.8% conversion is coming from. So every week, the first thing you should look at is what was your conversion for the last week? And did it go up or down, right? You should always know what your conversion rate is. And then you should also look at, let's say you did an ad campaign last week, or you did, you got some press, write-up or whatever it was. You should see that as a traffic source to your site. So in that scorecard, it's showing you where your top traffic sources are, and your efforts from last week should show up. And I think it also shows you your top pages, so your landing pages should also show up. And it's a really good indicator of, after the fact, I know what I did last week. Did it actually have an impact on the business? Did it drive traffic? Did it affect my conversion rate? And, in theory, you can get really detailed in all this stuff, and you can see the conversion rate of every single source. And what I tell people is to take a step back and just look at it from that scorecard standpoint at that higher level. And if things look like they make sense, like I did this big Facebook ad campaign last week, and I saw a lot more traffic come in, and my conversion rate is stable, then my assumption is my ad campaign was good, right? And if the opposite happens, then you dig in and see what's wrong, kind of thing. So I try to tell people not to micromanage the data, which is totally technical possible, but a bandwidth constraint, because none of us can scale to look at every single thing like that. So that scorecard is meant as a heartbeat and a validation. If it all makes sense, then move on to the next task of the week.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Excellent. Any more questions, Dylan?
I think that's all I have. I'm super grateful that you invited me to be on your podcast and discuss my new website and brand. So it's been really positive, and I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. We went really long.
Cool.
You've been listening to the Shopify Solutions Podcast with Scott Austin. This podcast is brought to you by Jade Puma, a full-service agency focused on Shopify. If you like what you heard, please leave a review and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have a question or comment, please send an email to scott@jadepuma.com.